On May the 22nd, 2023, I was pretty shocked and damn buzzing to get this email. Now, this email informed me that I'd be awarded an Umbraco MVP position, and for me, I was completely buzzing because this was something I've been trying to get for a few years now. However, it had eluded me. Now, what I'm going to do in this video is talk about my journey of how I became an Umbraco MVP. And as you'll shortly see, because my journey took probably a little bit longer, I thought I'd ask an expert. So we're going to get Emma from the Umbraco MVP nomination team. She works at Umbraco and she's going to talk to you about how you can become an Umbraco MVP as quick as possible if that's one of your goals. So if you want to help the Umbraco community, if you want to potentially become an Umbraco MVP, this is a must-watch video. So, my journey with Umbraco started on the 10th of November 2015 when I wrote this blog post about how to install Umbraco 7. Now, the reason why I decided to learn Umbraco is because I was doing some freelance work at the time and I was doing a lot of PHP work, and inside, I felt a bit disgusting. Now, because I've always been a big fan of .NET, I wanted to be able to say to my clients, here, use Umbraco, it's free, it can be done within your budget, brilliant. And this is the reason why I got into Umbraco. Now, I don't think it's going to be that big a shock to that many people who've come across any of my work. The reason why I was awarded an Umbraco MVP status was because of the amount of content I've created over the years. So since 2015, I've created over 100 articles on my website all about Umbraco. Now, this started from V6 and it's gone up all the way to V11. Now, if you think about it, each article probably takes me 3 to 4 hours at a minimum to write, so you can see that there's a lot of time that's gone in here. Now, aside from that, yes, I have a YouTube channel that you're currently watching, and I started this about 2 or 3 years ago, and from that time, I've done about 30, 40 different videos all about Umbraco. Now, each one of these videos takes me somewhere between 10 and 30 hours to create. And then finally, on top of that, I've also created 2 books all about Umbraco, one on .NET Core, one on .NET Framework. So to recap, I couldn't even guess the amount of hours it's taken me to create all this content. Over 100 blogs, 50 videos, 2 books. I mean, we're talking hundreds and hundreds of hours. Now, one of the things that I didn't do during this time was I never really consciously applied to become an Umbraco MVP. So there's a good chance that I might have got one sooner if I'd known the process. However, I kind of assumed that one day I'd magically get it. However, that is not how the system works. So what we're going to do now is look at how you can become an Umbraco MVP yourself. Now, if you think you've done enough this year to become an Umbraco MVP, then what you can do is head over to mvp.umbraco.com. Once you get to this site, you can then log in or create an account using your GitHub. And then after you log in, you'll see that you can find a link to submit an entry to become an Umbraco MVP. Now, if I click on this, you'll see at the moment that the submissions are closed. And the reason for this is that submissions are only open at certain times of the year. So you'll need to come back here and check. And typically it's at the beginning of the year when you'll need to make your application. Now, an application is where you prove what you've done for the last 12 months in order to be an Umbraco MVP. And regardless if you're a new MVP or an existing MVP, you're going to have to come back here each year and create a submission and add in all your proof. So expect to get very familiar with this form. Now, instead of me just simply giving you some tips on what I think would be good to try out to become an Umbraco MVP, instead, this is a time where we get in the big guns and we call in an expert. And this is where you get to meet Emma. So Emma Burstow is the Director of Developer Relations over at Umbraco. She's a 3-time MVP and she's the lady that knows how to become an MVP. So let's see what she has to say. Now, before we get on to the interview, I should apologise for the sound quality, which is all my fault. Before I did the interview, I did test everything out. However, for whatever reason, the gains weren't right. So I've done the best with the audio that I can, and I'll also interject and put some things on screen so you can make sure you hear what's saying. But stick with it because there's some really important things in here which will help you out if you're interested in becoming an MVP. So the first question that I wanted to ask was to get some insider perspective on how Emma recommended that someone could go about becoming an Umbraco MVP.
Cool. So how do people commonly become MVPs? In recent years, I hope it's changed somewhat. But if I tell you a little bit about what it used to be like, so when I became an MVP, it was a great surprise to me. I knew that I'd been contributing, but I didn't think I'd been contributing quite as much as others. And what helped massively is that the people that were deciding knew me. And so it was a sort of mixed blessing. It was like, I knew I'd been doing the work, but did I really think I've been doing enough? And this would have been 2017, I think. And there was an issue within the MVP program back then in that HQ weren't really able to award people with an MVP award unless they knew who they were, and how on earth do you know who everyone is, right?
So I think that was a fantastic point that's worth highlighting. If you're interested in becoming an MVP, then it's going to be much easier for you if you're known within the community and by the nominating committee itself. So get your name out there and start talking to people, and your life's going to become a little bit easier on your journey.
So nowadays, what I hope people would say, and I'm massively biased because I've designed the new program, is that the first way to become an MVP now is to get a nomination because of the work that you've been doing, or nominate yourself because you've been doing work. It's not a flawless system because by and large, community contributors are not doing it for clout. They're not doing it so that people will say, "Oh, well done! Like, I'm so thanks for doing it." So getting that nomination can feel a bit strange, but also nominating oneself, wow, like that's fraught too, right? And I like to think of the British sensibility as being very anti putting oneself forward. And so we're really trying to get people from all over the world, I can't speak to any other sensibilities being so British, to put themselves forward and to say, I really I have been doing all of this and I would love for you to know about it.
Now, being British, I can also relate to this point because filling in a form and talking about how I've helped people is a bit weird. I typically just do some blogs, do some videos because I like it, and then trying to kind of justify some reason why I'm doing it for an MVP program. It is a bit weird. However, it's just something you're going to have to get used to or do yourself.
So the best way now to become an MVP is to apply, and to apply even if you're not sure, because what we saw this year was a whole host of applications from people who are on the right track, and even the form is designed to kind of show where you're not, like the touch points you're not hitting, like perhaps you're doing a lot of one thing but not a lot of another. So perhaps you're doing an awful lot of code contributions, but you've never written an article or created any content for it, or so on and so on. Now you don't have to do all those things to become an MVP, but that real breadth of experience and the breadth of contribution can really help.
Now this was interesting for me because my route to becoming an MVP was pretty much around creating blogs and creating videos. So I focused on one thing. However, from Emma's advice, kind of sounded like it might be better to work on multiple things or in multiple different areas at the same time. So I wanted to know which route was better.
Yeah, and it's not essential because some people are so prolific in their field that it would be bonkers not to award them or acknowledge the hard work they're doing. And I'd hate to drag someone away from their pull request so that they could stand on stage and give an awkward talk if that's not their thing, right? But yeah, it's that we do get a lot of sort of wide contributors who do lots of things that they don't class as particularly specialist or expert, but in reality, the breadth is so impressive, Focus on your strengths. That's what I would say. Like, whatever you do it and enjoy it. Like, we love to see contributors who are passionate about what they do. And I think one of the things that you might be able to relate to, so you've been really consistent, John. You've consistently created content. Who knows how long, but you've got so many videos, and your name comes up quite often in relation to videos. And in order to give you the chance to be an MVP, it was about opening up, not just you, but you as an example, opening up the form and saying what you're up to. And, it would have been easy enough for me to say, well, a lot of his contributions are in the video forum, so why don't we see more of him here or there? But it's not the right question to ask, because this is what suits you and what fits you and fits your workload and your lifestyle, etc., etc. So doing what you're good at is key.
So I think there's some really good insights here. So the first off is that there's multiple routes to become an MVP. And it's probably going to be a little bit easier if you focus on multiple areas. However, if your lifestyle, if your personality, if your passions are around one specific area, then it's not impossible to become an MVP yourself. So basically, find what you're passionate about, do that and connect with community, and you're going to be on a good stead.
You could just make a habit of popping up at meetups to give a talk and then writing an article to script and then doing a few code contributions and tweeting to say that you've got your Hacktoberfest tea. Oh my gosh, like we're bound to notice you if you do that. Like definitely. But I think what's more important to me, at least as the community manager, is that people are doing what works for them and what they love. And I tend to see that through consistency when people show up time after time and they keep it going.
So I think Emma shared some really great tips here, but I was also interested if there are any hacks, tips or tricks that people could use to speed up the time it takes to become an MVP. And this is what she had to say.
Well, I could almost sum it up in bullet points actually, and it all lives on the form. So the form that you fill in when you want to become an MVP, we've got two sections. We've got add your activities, which will be, I wrote an article, I wrote a blog post, I spoke at a meetup, etc., etc. And then on the other side, the side that I find most interesting, we've got 4 boxes, and it asks you, what are your 4? Really, it's addressing 4 pillars, like in what ways do you contribute, in what ways do you collaborate, in what ways do you mentor, and in what ways are you friendly. And so if you took those 4 things and you could do one thing for each to show you were doing one of each, and then you went onto the activity side and you could do between 7 or up maybe. I mean, actually, I awarded an MVP this year with 1 activity because that person, if they'd have been honest, could have broken that 1 activity into 10, but okay, they just put 1. But what most interests me is, are you collaborating, are you contributing, are you friendly, and are you mentoring? So become a mentor, speak at a meetup, speak at another meetup, show that you speak at more than one, build something with somebody else in the community or help somebody on the forum, and then finally show that you're doing your best to champion the friendly values of Umbraco, which can all be covered by the above as well. And that would be the quickest route. The only problem we've got, and this is the thing that I learned this year, is, I had it quite fixed in my mind, as did the whole review panel, this is what we want to see. But what we learned this year in awarding a record number is there were people who didn't make it, even though they were doing all those things. But they just hadn't been doing them very long. And that was the issue. So it's definitely a cheat code, but at the same time, without consistency, it's difficult to prove you're really into it. And there were people that I would love to have given an award for maybe 6 months of solid contributions. But if it had been a year, it would have been a different story. So I guess that's the 5th thing. Spread it out across the year. That's the cheat code. That's everything you need to know.
Now, following on from this question, I was also interested to know what are some of the key mistakes or common mistakes people make when they actually submit these forms.
I think the biggest mistake we've got is people that have done work and they don't know how to tell us. That's the really hard one. So the contributor that I mentioned who wrote 1 activity, and I knew what that activity was, and I went to the thing in question that they were speaking about, and I know that it was consistent work for months, and the way that they boiled down was 1 activity, and the way that they mentioned it in the form was this. That's the biggest mistake that you can make, because if I didn't know, I would have thought, well, this is a chancer, trying to get an award with just the 1 thing. So, and for that, I'm not sure that there's a very good solution, because I know firsthand how difficult it can be to sit down and write like a CV or a job application, and now we're asking people, oh, can you write an application for an award that you're only half sure you deserve? And it can be super awkward. So the biggest mistake is not writing enough.
So I think this is another fantastic point I probably wouldn't have thought of, and it's probably one that I'm guilty of. And that is that the nomination committee won't know the work you've done unless you tell them about it. So let's say that we've created a package. Simply saying, I've created this package probably isn't enough. Let's be honest, if you've created a package, you've probably set up a website, you've got some documentation, you might have answered some Stack Overflow posts on how to install your package, you might have debugged things, you might have been doing some bug fixing if someone spotted an issue. Now, all of that is a lot of work, but on the form, if you just said, I created a package, then the nomination committee don't know the true work that you've done and they'll have their hands tied. So when it comes to filling in that form, create as much detail as you can.
Advise people to sit down with someone and do the form. I do mine for the Microsoft MVP program with a friend remotely. We sit down and she helps me go through it, because on my own I would list 8 activities. With her I had something like 28. It's like, oh gosh, yeah, I forgot about that, or I didn't make sense of that, or I didn't think that was relevant. So just not doing things in a vacuum.
So the next question I was interested in was based on a mistake that I made. So the first time I actually had the idea, maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago, of applying for an MVP status, I didn't actually know when I needed to apply for it. And by the time I thought about it, I'd lost this year's nomination, so I had to wait for another year. So I wanted to know when Emma recommended that people should start thinking about applying for this MVP program.
We want it to be open all year round so that people can kind of submit as and when they want to, when they've done something, so that they don't have to save it all up. So the MVP nominations and submission forms should be open in the next couple of weeks, so July basically, and the cut-off will be around the 1st of May. So that's a lot of time for people to get their activities in and to express that they're interested.
Now, the last question I had for Emma was what she thought was the best benefit of being within the MVP program. Now, sadly, the audio for this section was really bad, so I'm going to try and summarize what she told me. So some of the benefits of being an MVP include things like a free £1,000 ticket to Co-Garden. You also get access to a beautiful statue, which you can see on screen now. You also get access to a Slack channel, and this was one of the biggest benefits in Emma's opinion. So in the Slack channel, you get access to other MVPs, internal Umbraco people, where if you have problems, if you need support, you can ask on there and you have a nice, friendly community that can help you. Now, some other benefits is that you'll get access to a free cloud project. You'll also get some free official training, which is obviously very expensive. Now, one thing about the training is that you can also nominate somebody else to do the training for you. So this benefit actually got me thinking, and what I'm going to do is give away my training to one lucky viewer. So what we're going to do in next week's video is set up a competition where you can win my training. Now, what I'm going to do is pick a name at random. However, there is one caveat that I really want to give my training to someone who's going to get value from it. So all I'm doing is looking for someone who would do it because it is expensive training, that they're going to get value from it. Maybe they can't afford to do the training themselves. And then finally, that they're going to think it's going to boost their career somehow. And all I'm going to do is probably have a form. You can submit to it and then I'll pick a name at random. It's all been signed off, so tune in next week to get that video. However, as you'll see, there's some great benefits for being an MVP, so it's well worth trying to win this status. So I just want to really thank Emma for that interview, because I really think there's some gold in there which will hopefully help someone out. Now, we've reached that time in the video, so if you have found value from Emma's efforts, my efforts, then please click on the like button and don't forget to hit subscribe. Now, if you are interested in learning more about Umbraco, then I have created a video which introduces Umbraco 11 and covers some of the new features. So if you haven't checked out that video, the link is on the screen right now. Click on that. Otherwise, I hope you have a great day wherever you are in this world. And until next Sunday, happy coding.